All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me today. Thanks to Bayren for putting this together and everybody who's taking time out of their day to attend. My name is Jake Tisinger, and I work for Build It Green. Build It Green, if you're not familiar, we're an Oakland-based nonprofit. We work with real estate professionals, local and state governments, contractors, builders, etc., to help increase the awareness and adoption of green building practices. What I'm going to talk about today specifically, looking into the couple codes and standards teams and the efforts that we've taken on so far, go through a few above code ordinance opportunities that are available to local jurisdictions, talk through the resources and support that the teams provide, and talk through timeline for both our teams as well as the local jurisdictions who would be implementing these. So the goal of the Codes and Standards teams is to engage with local governments to support the attainment of both local goals and adoption of above code ordinances, finding the alignments between those two and looking into resources available to help adoption of those. The couple teams that I've mentioned, there is Bayren, who's working on coordinating with the 9 Bay Area county governments, and then the PG&E Codes and Standards team working with all the jurisdictions within the PG&E territory outside of the Bayren counties. Build It Green is helping to support these efforts, provide complementary resources, help with coordination, and reaching out to the different cities to find out what they're interested in. Lisa, Abby, and Peter have all covered sort of the big picture policy drivers behind what the interest is in above code ordinances. Ultimately, to get to the 80% below the 2050 goal, with current technology and initiatives in place between efficiency measures, electrification of the grid, and then on the distribution side, again, looking at low carbon production, we get to, based on this study, about 60% below the 1990 level. So where the above code ordinances are really trying to focus are on that remaining 20%. What sort of implementation measures are available to help us reach the 80% reduction from the 1990 levels. The built environment, obviously the graph that Peter showed, 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions come from the built environment between residential and non-residential. Land use decisions at the local level, especially when done among lots of local jurisdictions working together on a regional scale, have a big impact on the bottom line and how California and the rest of the nation really utilize their energy within these sectors. There's a myriad of policy decisions that are out there looking at zero net energy, reducing the consumption of energy, reducing water, looking into, from a policy standpoint, how do we meet these goals? But not a ton of those really get into the implementation. They don't necessarily intend to at this point, as Peter mentioned. But what can local jurisdictions do to help drive that? We think that above code and green building ordinances are some of the tools available to local governments to help push that needle from the implementation standpoint. And as you're making decisions for your communities in which you live, you know best what your community is interested in, where the traction is, what sort of values that your community has, and where you may be able to find some movement. Taking the information that's available, the last piece of that, obviously, what resources are available to help you implement on these decisions. And so above code ordinances and the Codes and Standards team, we believe we live at the intersection of those 3 things and can help you push forward on any of these measures that seem to make sense for your community at this time. There's a lot of opportunities that are available. Each have their own unique challenges. It's important for local jurisdictions to decide where do they think they have the most impact. What sort of building or what sort of sectors really are the biggest piece of the pie. So is it going to be in public buildings and projects or private? Is it going to be residential or non-residential? If you're looking at residential, do you want to impact multifamily, single family, both? Existing or new construction is the other piece of that. So From the energy efficiency, the single measures, disclosure, RICO, all of those, there's ways that you can get at either one of these and get very specific, or some of these individual measures do touch on existing and new construction, residential and non. It really just, it matters where you want to have the most impact, where you think you can get the most impact, and what's going on in your community right now. If you are interested in taking the energy efficiency approach, you're probably familiar with the Cal Green tiers, tiers 1 and 2. Those are looking at percentage above the 2016 code. So Cal Green tier 1 is 15%, tier 2 is 30%. The draft cost effectiveness studies for residential should be available any day now at the end of Q1 of this year. Non-residential timeline is Q2. For Zero Net Energy, or Z&E, that's a little longer timeline. A portion of that is waiting on the adaptation of the current software to be able to measure what the savings and cost effectiveness would be when buildings are built in that way. And again, both of these, there's a way that you can get at new and existing homes if that's what you're interested in doing. So why single measures? If you're not interested in the energy efficiency approach, or that seems like you're taking on way too much at this time, but let's say you have a climate action plan that addresses reductions in lighting, or looks at cool roofs, things like those. Looking into single measures, this is a way to build those into your existing processes to implement the 2016 codes by the end of this year for implementation next year. As Peter mentioned, 2019 codes, that process is underway as far as looking into proposals and investigating that. A lot of these single measures would be measures that may be on the 2019 codes as written. So this could be a good way to get familiar with what's coming down, get ahead of the curve, get everyone familiar within your jurisdictions about how you can begin to implement these things. Of course, if as you are going through the code cycle right now, looking into any of these measures, it's really tacking that on. If you go into your councils over the next few months, any way to go through these things, it could be a good time to introduce it. Maybe they're not ready for it now, but if they get introduced to it now, then it's not as unfamiliar as it comes down the line later. Again, this leads to continued improvements of buildings. It's a way to get just a step ahead of the changes that are coming. And as I mentioned, stability and implementation, doing all these things at once. I apologize for the resolution on this. If any of you, I think a handful of you anyway, got the summary of opportunities document that outlines a lot of these. If you didn't and you want a copy, do come see me. I can give you a digital copy or send you a printed version. But what this is attempting to do is it outlines the single measure opportunities that are available to you. And it's a matrix to help you identify, does this measure need a cost effectiveness study? Does this apply to new buildings or existing buildings, or both? Single family, multifamily, or both, and non-residential. So if you already know where your jurisdiction is interested in heading, you can find a few of these on the list that may make sense and meet your needs for multifamily, single family, or non-residential, and start to narrow down the list for you that way. Just the second page of that. And we did talk a bit about BISO and RICO and the Boulder model. If those are things that your city is interested in learning more about, again, even if you're not ready to implement this right now, these are things that we can look into for you and help put some research together and look into cost effectiveness. But those are options available to you as well. So one example of a single measure that you could look into, non-residential outdoor lighting and new construction. It's a pretty specific sector, and the way that the measure is written is it's prescriptive, so you can pick building facades or sales lots or drive-through windows and have these lighting standards apply to those specific situations. This again is for new construction. If there's interest in pursuing it in existing, that's something that can be pursued. The benefit of the New constructions, that's a cost effectiveness study, is essentially completed at this point. That's one of the pieces that's already done. Implementation of this is fairly straightforward. It's a matter of swapping out the existing specifications table with the updated table that is a little more strict on the efficiency of lighting that can be put in these places. The remaining pieces then would be the justification statement, which the codes and standards team would help you develop, and supporting documentation at the point that you submit those. And then, of course, for implementation, there is training available if you want over-the-counter handouts, any sort of forms or documents that you want to be created. Those are things that we could talk about and assist you with developing and making the implementation process a little smoother for you. So what does the timeline look like? For the codes and standards team, we're really looking at getting feedback from local jurisdictions and identifying a few measures that they may be interested in pursuing. Again, maybe they haven't decided they want to do it in this code cycle, but they're interested in pursuing it in the long term. Let us know. We can put those together. The more cities that we have associated with these measures, more impact we can have. If we're doing the work anyway, we might as well distribute it to everybody who's interested. We're looking at getting that in by the end of April. The sooner the better. We can work with people on their different timelines and prioritize those who need the documents sooner. Ultimately, the goal is to have draft documents ready. These are documents for submittal by the end of June of this year, and a bit of time to comment, go back and forth, see if there's anything missing, and have the final documents ready for July of this year. The reason for July is that that's the 180-day timeline to adopt the 2016 codes does begin in July. If you're interested in having the ordinance effective in 2016, it's a much shorter timeline. That's possible to do. That's a possibility. Let us know right away if that's the case, but probably more likely if you want it to be in conjunction with adopting the 2016 codes. By July, again, the 180-day timeline would start, the documents would be available, and if you're looking at adoption by December, or you would be looking at adoption by December if you want it effective for January of 2017. So just general timeline, it's helpful to know what local jurisdictions' interests are and when they want to adopt this. If they're looking January 1, some adopt it a bit later. Those are all flexible things that we'd be interested in hearing about. Again, the support that's available, it's identification and evaluation of these opportunities. So this summary of opportunities document is a good start. We've sort of outlined all of the measures that are available, just brief highlights of what they mean. And again, the table lets you know whether or not they need a cost effectiveness study. We've outlined all the documents that you'd have to submit in order to implement these. We can help you acquire the cost effectiveness analysis for the measures that do require that. Developing all the submittal materials for you. Template ordinance is another thing that we can help work on. That would be a piece you would have to take through council and whatnot. And training and tools for implementation and compliance. Again, as you implement, if you need handouts, if you need staff training, we can make ourselves available for that. A few cities have expressed interest too in carbon tracking, looking at the impact of adopting these ordinances and what does that mean over the long term. These are in preliminary discussions, but we'd be really interested in hearing what you'd be looking for in a tool like that. What tools are available that work or don't work, and how could we help you look into that. If you are interested, Amy Dryden is the lead on this at Build It Green, and I'm here for her today, assisting with these efforts as well. I believe the presentation will be made available to you, so give us a call, send us an email. I'll be tabling with everybody after the event as well, so you can come and find me and just let us know. Again, we're looking at it pretty quick within the next few weeks. Yay or nay, what measures are interested to you, and we can get our work started so we can meet our timeline of having all the documents ready for you by July. And went through that fairly quickly. Are there any questions?
Less a question I just wanted to mention really quick. We are actually, at the same time as I'm here at this meeting, at the Energy Commission, we're having our workshop on the software for 2016. So we are about to release some basically beta versions out to public that people can use to see what our software is going to do to assess builds in 2016. Included in that, anyone's familiar with the PV Watts software for modeling performance of the solar system, solar PV system, that's getting integrated into CVEC, into CVEC Res to help provide that analysis of how much solar is going to affect that building and how much is needed to reach zero. Inherent to that, we actually are implementing an energy design rating in that software. And this is at least aligned to the federal system in that our baseline is the same 2006 IECC compatible building as modeled by ResNet. And so that would be a score of 100, and then the building will have a score somewhere below that, and then there'll be some, and then that score will be how much you have to subtract out with the solar array to see if you get zero. So that will contain the tools necessary if folks want to do a zero energy ordinance under CalGreen in 2016. The other thing to mention too is CalGreen's provisions, those two tiers, those are guidelines, they are model ordinances. They are not a hard and fast requirement that you must adopt expressly that language is on close. So for example, we have a local ordinance that Santa Monica has requested approval for. This is a simple put PV on approved ordinance. They're not talking to C&E, they're not trying to do a CalGreen electric designation. They're simply using that as a pathway to say, we just want an ordinance that says people have to put solar on the roofs of new buildings. So you have a lot of flexibility. Those are absolutely good provisions to use. If you're looking at say like 15 or 30 is hard for us to hit, and you want to do a 10% or something like that, know that you can do that. You've got some flexibility there. I don't have a hard deadline that I could communicate. Like I said, we're for lack of a better term, we're demoing it at the ACM workshop to get some feedback, get people's some feedback that we can then incorporate into a version that we release later this month. So we're on the last days before, the last weeks before we're going to get a draft version of the software, for lack of a better term, and it will be finalized before the middle of the year.
And for non-res?
Same for non-res. We're on the same timeline. Our directive is we have to have all the software published and completely ready to go no later than the midpoint of this year, because we have to give at least 6 months of complete availability prior to the effective date of regulations. And we're trying our darndest to beat that deadline. That is to get it in even earlier than that. So. Go ahead.
Any other requests for feedback? Are you looking for just an email if folks are interested in, or is there more feedback?
Yeah, no, that would work great. Give us a call, send us an email, give us your contact information, what you're interested in. It'd be helpful to know, are you looking to adopt something like this for sure, as part of the 2016 cycle? Are you just interested in more information? Give us a sense of, but yeah, essentially a name and what measure and general timeline, and we can respond to you from there. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jake. And at this time, I'd like to also thank all of our other speakers.